So the just want to welcome everyone. I know that there's a lot of faces hiding away on the internet. So I hope everyone is having a great Sabbath. The title of the sermon is "Lord, Remain in Our Lives," and this is more of a prayer that I think we need to do for 2021. So um, I think in many ways we limit our God. And what do I mean by we limit him? I think sometimes we just put him in a box and we just make him fit in there, and whatever doesn't fit in that box we just kind of don't pay attention to it. But if we want God to dwell among us, and if we want him to be a part of our life, do we need to keep him in the box, or do we need to kind of get rid of the box and allow him to work within our lives? They say that we should invite him into our home. Okay, that's great. What happens when you bring somebody, a guest, into your home? Do they teach us what they want to teach us, the things that they know, they specialize, or do we teach them the things that we want and they have no say in what's going on? What about from a different perspective? If we, let's say, at our house came, I don't know, James Cameron or Michael Jordan, or I don't know, Einstein or Newton, or somebody else that you consider famous, what kind of things would they be able to teach us? Would they be able to teach us what we want to teach, what we want to be taught, or what they know? You know, what kind of things they want to teach us? And the same thing with God. If we ask God to stay in our life, or to dwell in our hearts, in our homes, what kind of things should we allow him to teach us? The things that we want, or the things that he wants to teach us? We think of it as God as being a good God, one that will dwell in our hearts forever and in our presence forever. But there's the possibility that he may not want to do that. And a good example comes um, from the Bible, from the life of Saul, um, where God told Saul, and this comes from Samuel, First Samuel chapter 15, where God told Samuel, um, to tell Saul to go destroy all the Amalekites. He says everything: children, men, women, um, old men, everything, animals, everything. He just said wipe them off the planet. And Saul ended up not doing that. He ended up keeping some of the flocks, and he spared the king's lives. And then when Samuel found out about it, he went and told Saul that you haven't done what God asked you to do. So God, he's gonna leave your life. He's gonna find another king instead of you, and you are no longer under his protection. So Saul turns around and grabs Samuel's coat, and then the coat tears into two pieces, and that's what happened to his kingdom. It got torn away from God. So in our daily life, God either may choose to dwell in our homes, in our hearts, and then in Samuel's case, where he got warned that God's not gonna be there forever. Samuel realized that, I'm sorry, Saul realized that God wasn't going to do that. But in our lives, sometimes we may not even know it that God is not part of our lives anymore. So this year, remember at the beginning of the year, it said, what's the next step for us? What do we need to do? And I think part of that, as the year starts to progress, is I think we need to ask God to be part of our lives more than it is now, to remain in our lives and to teach us His ways, and to make us a vessel that only He can mold, and to fight with us, and sometimes to fight against us, and that to show us His ways instead of us showing Him our ways. Because it doesn't take much to go astray. It doesn't take much for us to follow the lead path. And we need a guide, some sort of guide. And the same way a compass and a map shows us what we need to do and the direction that we need to go, the same way God is able to show us the direction we need to go. um, I'm not sure how many of you ever used a compass and a map together. I know some of you, I see some of the people kind of shaking their heads, but they're really helpful because it shows you, the map. It shows you, which it shows you where you need to go, and then the compass shows you, how you need to get there. And if you're, but you have to be very careful because if you're not lined up exactly with your path, you might be able to steer one way or another way. And think of it, if you have to go, a couple of miles, um, and that couple of degrees off will lead you astray by either a couple of 100 feet or even a couple of miles by the time you get into your destination. So the same thing applies with us. If we go through our lives and we're off just a little bit, as we continue to make our way down their lives, then that chance of error sort of grows as we go along. So we have to be very careful because, as Ellen White says, the path of righteousness is a short and very narrow path. And in her first vision, Ellen White describes the path. And initially, she said that, hey, it was pretty wide and you could bring your horses, your buggies, your cars, everything you wanted to bring. But as things got further and further on the path, the path started to become more narrow and narrow, and not a lot of things would fit down the path. And I mean, you could see from the picture, at the beginning, you have people that are bringing, horses and some supplies and things like that. But if you go on further on the path, well, that no longer fit, and you have to get rid of them. And the same thing with us. As we progress through our Christian life, we have to get rid of all the extra baggage. And then even further on, where you're not even able to carry anything, you might be able to, I don't know, have some things like a ring or something on your finger. But by the time it gets to heaven, even that is actually paving material. So keep that in mind. Um, but as you go and you go to the towards the end of the path, you can see that you don't even have something to hold on to, but God provides ropes that we can hold on to so we can maintain our balance until we get to heaven. So um, as we progress to life, let us not think that we're okay, because unless we have God in our life. Because if we don't, if we think we're okay, we might not make it that far. So see, I don't. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so um, In Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, it says, enter to the narrow gate, for the wide is the gate, and broad is the road to destruction, and many enter through it, but shall it be the gate? Hold on, I gotta move things on my screen because I can't see it very well. Gotta move things. Okay. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. So as we progress through life, we have to be very careful, what we see, and we have to be very careful not to celebrate, before the time comes. How many of you heard of Tanguy Pepiot? Any of you heard of him? Probably not. This is something that I recently learned about. So he was, in this race. He was running a 3,000-meter steeplechase, and was just about to win. The start line, or the finish, wasn't too far from where this picture was taken. So before he got to the end, he started celebrating. You could see his arm. He was cheering the crowd on. But behind him, he didn't realize. If you look at the man on the left, you see he's struggling. He's trying to do something, and he actually the man on the left actually overtook the one on the right, and the man on the left actually won the game. He didn't even realize what was happening. Everybody was cheering, everybody was trying to warn him, but he basically set his own pace and didn't realize that behind him somebody else was going to overtake him, and then win the get the first place. So and I was looking at this. The same thing can happen, with us. We may think that we're okay. We may think that our Christian life and our relationship with God is fine. But yet, all of a sudden, there's somebody else that kind of zooms past us and kind of takes our place. So um, we as Christians, we have to be very careful. And more recently, I realized that there are people out there in the world that are seeking God with more zeal than speaking for myself than I am. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's probably great, but in my Christian life, I think we have to give it all, because we could be overtaken by other people that may want a better Christian walk or a better relationship with God more than we do, and in the end, um, they end up seeking because they ended up seeking God. It's asking us to do more. Then God, on the other hand, may choose that person over us. So we have to be very careful about our Christian walk, and we have to dance the victory dance when we get to heaven, not not while we're still on earth. So uh, Mark 13:35-37 says, in the same way, the owner of the house will be coming. It may not be in the evening, or it might in the night, or when the sun comes up, or in the morning. He may come when you are not looking for him and find you asleep. What I say to you, I say to all, watch. So this is a good verse for us to remember I think in our Christian walk, because in our journey, there are many things that can occur in our lives, or many things that can happen, which might take us from that straight and narrow path. But as the Bible says, we have to be watchful. We have to be careful of of our daily walk with Christ. How many of you are familiar with Dr. Jordan Peterson? I don't know how many, and I can't see all of you. It's a lot different when you're in a Zoom meeting versus when you're actually speaking from the pulpit. You can actually get a better interaction from the audience. But are you guys familiar with Jordan Peterson?
It's about 900 feet.
Well, I'm gonna. I have a couple of comments that about him. So, Dr. Jordan Peterson is a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. He's a clinical psychologist and has written many books over the years. One of them became the bestseller not too long ago, entitled "The 12 Rules of Life." And then he also, earlier in 2018, he has um, the number one best nonfiction book in United States, Canada, and or international, basically. So he's well known. He's spoken in front of the Congress, I believe, in really and debated in really controversial topics that are very popular these days. He's very well spoken, very well mannered. He has great moral and ethical values that would probably surpass any Seventh Day Adventist. Um, he has over I think it's 14 million pages. I mean 14 million hits on his page. He has about 25,000 views, daily views on his website. Anyway, so the bottom line. He's a very popular person, and he knows what's going on in lives, um, and he's treated many people for many different things. And he's not a he doesn't believe in God, until more recently in an interview that I've seen with him. And sometimes he's a little hard to follow, but he made a statement that I think it's really important, because in my mind, if I want to choose a role model, let's say if I didn't have God in our lives, if I wanted to choose a role model, this is the type of person that I would choose as a role model. He's um, he's really down to earth person. He's really modest, but also when he speaks, every word that comes out of this person's mouth, it's very valuable. And sometimes I'm wondering if God has a website, if God had a website, how many people would actually follow, that website? I don't know, probably a lot of people, but regardless. And he said, the problem is, I probably believe that. And I am amazed. So this is speaking about understanding Christ. So just keep that in mind. It says the problem is, I probably believe that, and I am amazed at my own belief, and I don't understand it. Because I've seen sometimes the objective world and the narrative world touch. I've seen that many times in my own life, and also in some sense, I believe it's undeniable. And the ultimate example of that in principle is supposed to be Christ. And that seems to be oddly plausible. I still don't know what to make of it, partly because it's too terrifying of a reality to fully believe. I don't even know what would happen to you if you believed it, if you fully believed it. So this is a guy that doesn't believe in Christ, and yet he's struggling with the understanding of Christ, and that he believes that he lived on earth and he dwelled among us, but yet he doesn't know what to make of it. And I'm sure God's not through with him yet. He's not done with him yet. He's got a lot of lessons, just like we have a lot of lessons to learn about God. But God is working on him, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen, because um, spend some time to search him, because I think it's worth looking into it. But I think God needs people like who likes people like Jordan Peterson to be on his side. Is that because when our time comes and we have to testify on his behalf, we may need to do it in front of Congress. We may need to do it in front of a large group of people, um, and that we need to be prepared to be able to do that. So, how is God supposed to teach us? Is it supposed to teach us the way we want it to be taught, or does he want, or should we allow him to teach us based on what he thinks is good and what he thinks is right for our lives? See. So what about us? Where do we stand? And I'm not just saying us as in the entire world. I'm speaking, what about us as our family and our church? Where do we stand? How do we see God? Is this something that we have over the years just gotten and put in a box, and then we take out, I don't like this one, I don't like that one, I don't like what he's teaching me, I'll keep this one? Or should we just allow him to be able to say, here, God, I'm an open book, you take it and you do with it what you see fit in our life? Because think about it this way: if we ask him to be in our hearts, if we ask him to be a part of who we are, right, what's he going to teach us? The things that he wants to teach us, right? The things of him, of his goodness, of his kindness. And I think many times we've taken God and made him into an outward thing, meaning that if we need financial assistance, God, please help us. If we need healing, we ask for healing. If we need protection, then we ask him for protection. But we don't necessarily want to internalize some of that help. For example, in an argument, we should probably ask to be calm. For some, if somebody curses at us or cuts us off at the light, we should probably bless them, not just honk the horn at them, right? um, we should probably be more patient with ourselves, more patient with our family members, with our coworkers, perhaps. We should probably ask more forgiveness, even though it may not even be our fault. That's, to me, that's an interesting concept. If something happens, if it's not my fault, why should I ask for forgiveness? But I'm wondering if maybe that's the right approach, to take in our life. Because when God dwells in us, when he dwells in us, he doesn't just take out the empty space there. He actually goes to work. He starts to do things. He starts to take things out of us that we don't need. He teaches us. He teaches us what he's good at. And what is God good at? He's good at loving. He's good at you know caring for us. He's good at modifying our interior, not just the outward appearance. Until that outward appearance just reflects his reflection. A couple of Sabbaths ago, there was the speaker at the church and said that he purifies us so that his reflection can be seen in us, because God is is holy. And if he reflects in us, then we have to be holy as well. So I'll leave you with this. God says that we should be like him. And if you ask him to be a part of our life, why do we need to oppose it? If we want him to dwell in us and to be in our homes, then shouldn't he be able to purify us and our homes and our families so that we can be more into his liking instead of our own liking? So as we conclude this, it's my prayer for this year to come that he remain in our lives, not because we are good, but because of his goodness, because he can teach us his ways, and because of the way he is, we can also become in him. Amen.